Okay, so Q&A time. But just, do you have any housekeeping points or anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good. Good. Any other questions on meditation? Yeah.
Um, During the interview today, you're asking me sort of if I knew why I was doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it sort of got me thinking if you could say a few words on motivation, intention in general, and maybe specifically for different sub practices. There's this sort of gap, like awaken for the benefit of all beings.
Right.
That can feel a little stale.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So we want to find what resonates with us in the moment, so then we can go like personal, like for you, what connects. There's like a selfish component that I think we can all relate to of wanting to suffer less and feel better. That's quite easy to find for most people, so you can relate to that. And then we can go specific on certain practices, like why do noting, for example. Well, noting's great because it works on your metacognition and your noticings per second and your sensory clarity. And why do you want those good? Because those are the tools that help you inspect the mind better in more detail. We can break it down like that. I mean, for me to connect to a motivation, I'd love to be more in dialogue and hear where you're coming from. Is there something, uh, yeah, ringing true for you? Have you landing on anything?
um, yeah, I guess I have sort of two, and they're not necessarily connected. One is just thinking about shamatha and jhana practice. I feel like there are different frames on why one ought to do that. And then I guess I have a background larger question where I feel like I'm motivated around this whole project to some extent, and then I have various sort of life, ego, ordinary motivations, and they feel quite segmented.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
to some extent at odds with one another. And so we could say something about that.
Is it like, we can do things for quote unquote unwholesome reasons, like compensation reasons, because we feel an inadequacy and so on?
Not even just all the good things of life that aren't awakening, you know.
Yeah. Well, so the good qualities of life of coming to see the world as more beautiful and being able to uh, relate and understand to more of the world and enjoy um, more what I call like the fine wines of the mind, appreciating subtle music and tastes and all these things can be bolstered, highlighted by a practice of meditation. So I see them very much going hand in hand. It's kind of an amazing thing. This is it can be an all-round upgrade to everything you do. These big themes of dissolving dualities helps us connect more to more being. See, we're not separate, and generating a mind that sees the interrelation between loads of aspects of our lives and these things. I'm sure in time those seeming quite separate motivations will cohere, or we find out in time which motivations are healthier and will stick around, where certain aspects of our lives we used to really care and devote a lot of time to drop off. And if you're worried about that thing dropping off, then it most likely won't happen. You'll hold on to it and keep it going. But then you actually might find, oh, I don't care for this thing anymore. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of some other big motivations, like what gets people into this. Yeah, awakening for benefit of all beings, wanting to suffer less, or pursuit of truth and curiosity is another big one. Like, just what is this? Like, what am I? Like, as intimately as you can, getting in touch with reality. Mm. Is there another layer you want to?
No, it's good. Oh, maybe you were gonna say something about shamatha in particular.
Yeah, this has come up like a few times with some people in some interviews. about what's the role of concentration. And there's a way in which like concentration in and of itself isn't so like the liberating thing or thing we care about. It just helps us stay on task and not get distracted. So it's like, yeah, I think of it as supplementing training. You want to strengthen it and you can work on it in that way so that when you go to doing the investigating, the insight, you can just be at the matter on hand, for longer periods of time. And that's helpful. I also think of shamatha, or the concentration can be just a natural byproduct of a mind that is more unified and not pulling itself in different directions. Then there's some schools thought was like, yeah, you have to work really hard to build concentration up and kind of hit it pedal to the metal and force yourself. There's something to that, but we can also go this cleanup route and listen to all our subminds and get them all on the same page and bridge the gap with the metacognition to make them aware of each other. And then more effortlessly, we can just stay with something so long as it seems important and relevant. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
I have a question about the significance or lack thereof of just body buzz tingling that will come up if you're doing maybe like a breath-based practice. So I can sort of incline at some point in my practice, like if I was doing metta, this is what would come up. Now it's like I don't even need to really use the phrases for an image. I can just sort of do the mental move where that sort of buzzy tingling thing will happen. And then sometimes it occasionally will sort of happen spontaneously without me trying to do it. I mean, just is that something that's important to, or, I was like, is there anything going on there that's worth paying attention to, or just ignore it, don't worry about it. It happens, not that significant, just keep going with practice or something like that.
Yeah, I want to say both. So we don't want to get attached to all the tingles and the buzzing and stuff like that. And yet there is also a reason why it's coming on, and we can explore it. And it might be, proto-PT for jhana. It could be some other energetic kundalini phenomena or emotional processing work and signaling and telling you that stuff. But we don't always want to go into that route. Yeah, we don't want to be attached to it. I mean, all kinds of, body's so complicated, all kinds of stuff can happen. I would be clear in your practice, noticing that just spontaneously come up.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Sometimes, more often is if I sort of either, or maybe I'll try to sprinkle in a little meta with what I'm doing, and it's more a thing that I'm consciously, or maybe even but I'm somehow intending consciously or subconsciously for it to come up. Usually,
Oh yeah.
Occasionally happens.
Yeah, you're intending, you want it. Why?
I think because it's feels to me like it is sort of something that when I have had sort of pre-jhanic experiences, which has not happened that often, it's sort of been this feeling accelerating and filling the body at a point that it may be, but not, has not really gotten to the tipping point where it becomes self-sustaining, which is sort of what I understand happens when you get past a certain point.
Yes.
So there's a certain amount to me being ooh, this is a good thing, I think, going on.
Yes, if you're clear you want to go the jhana route and explore it. I asked, is it coming on much? Because sometimes whether we like it or not, it's just happening, and then there may be, okay, we can't just not attend to it. There's something going on here. But it sounds like, you're kind of spurring it on because, you got jhana in mind. Yeah, then that opens the floodgates, to, it's kind of a cliche, the wanting it prevents it often from exceeding, more. So, yeah.
So you think it's better to sort of just let it happen spontaneously, that it's going to happen, rather than sort of trying to or ship or something.
Yeah. What I know about the practice you were doing, I'd say, yeah. Kind of let that happen if it happens. Yeah. What I know that you're doing, I wouldn't divert too much specifically for this thing. Cool. Yeah. Do you want to go?
So the project of integrating the witness seems to be going well pretty quickly. And so there's been some phenomenology, and then John access got a bit easier. And so I guess I have a choice of which route to go down. Just exploring the self, change in perception, versus working on jhanas. And I'm inclined to do jhanas because can't really do that at home, whereas I can walk around and explore.
It's a point, but the kind of coherence and stability and concentration you'll have on retreat, which also lends itself to doing good insight practice, is more available here than at home as well. I hear you. I would prioritize insight and getting to these, exploring the model, investigating the core setup over jhanas and state changing, because we have our just setup of mind, and then within that the states that we visit. It's kind of like the structure of the room versus the furniture in the room that can be changing. So, and it's the change of those structures that brings about the greater liberation. Yeah. There's a way of, if you can get to 4, and do insight from there. Pretty classic protocol. Yeah. What are you thinking? Where are you leaning?
I'm leaning towards doing jhana while I seated.
Yeah.
And then exploring the space while I'm walking around, because that's where it's most interesting to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Like centerlessness, boundlessness, it's all much more interesting outside than the next I could try to explore in here.
Yeah. Well, I know we've talked about, these core states and stuff, wanting to have more ready access to them, familiarity with them, and you're saying, the jhana states are at least in the neighborhood there.
So the motivation to explore the jhanas is having to do with the core states, and it's really about exploring 5, 6, 7, 8, and cessation.
I would still prioritize structure over state. The jhanas become easier with a more unified setup of mind. If you've still got kind of, witness and self and other stuff, and like these sort of say, those are blocks that make jhana harder in themselves. You have to really listen to your heart and wherever you're going to go. There's, limits to, my input here. But I know you're going to be doing lots more retreats, and I know you're well on the path. So if there's any fear that, now's the time to do jhana while I'm on retreat, while I've access, I'm sure you're going to have plenty of time in your life to also continue to do jhana. But we have to find, despite what I'm saying, where your whole body mind system is going as well. So
That's a quick follow.
yeah.
Does playing in 5 or 6 aid with the investigation of, so like there's some changes in boundlessness, and 5 is obviously exploding the space. Does that help with insight, or do you really just go to 4 and then explore?
It can help with insight because part of what we're recognizing is the jhana factors, the quality of the jhana factors, the equanimity, the boundless space, the ubiquitous consciousness, the emptiness, the nothingness, and not knowing of eighth, either perception or non-perception. We recognize, oh, those are just facets of the quote-unquote natural state. They're to be found and then highlighted and proliferated, making the jhana and downplaying other content. So they can lead to insight, but often they're just temporary states. So you get a glimpse and you kind of know what you're looking for, and then you come out of it. So the boundaries disappear in 5, and you have this boundless space. Like, okay, wow, cool. Now I know boundaries are not fundamental and that my mind can do that. But then when you come out of 5, boundaries reemerge. It's one thing to have the boundaries temporarily disappear. And the boundaries are correlating with somatic sensations. So they're disappearing because we've released certain sensations. We've got into a state so relaxed that those sensations are not contracting. It's another thing to, in day-to-day life, whether the contractions and the sense of the boundaries are there or not, they're still understood as empty. They're still kind of transparent. They're still seen through and can never fully enclose the mind, whether they're there or not. And that's why 4, is a good place to then do this insight, recognize, oh, despite the fact that the sensations are remaining, I can still see how they're not fundamental and this thing is boundaryless. So that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, Brent?
You may have touched some on this the other time when I stepped out, so feel free to pass. But I guess generally, and we're going to be too much to say about this, so any quick thoughts you have on sort of the relationship between emotional work and meditation? Sort of curious, but that's probably too broad. More specifically, sort of when you are meditating and you feel like you have some sort of emotional insight, whatever you want to say, how would you think about, okay, like in the context of this retreat, switching to being like, oh, I'm going to sort of follow this new thing versus it's kind of just a distraction, just like stay with the practice?
Yeah, good question. I like Ken Wilber has this model, wake up, clean up, grow up, show up, as these different axes of development we can work on. And typically a general heuristic, I think, is like wake up as much as you can, because then it makes the cleaning up much easier. But sometimes we're limited in how much we can wake up because the cleaning up refers to psychological baggage and trauma and stuff like that. We're limited in how much we can wake up because, this emotional content keeps coming up. So maybe we have to do some more cleanup work before we can then switch to the dry insight work on the waking up front. Yeah, and you wake up, you clean up, you wake up, you clean up, and it kind of goes like that. I would say if you're able to get to a state where you can reach, like you can be just very practical and you're emotionally even keeled and there's an equanimity and opening and you're not distracted by the hindrances and you have access to that, take advantage of that state to then do the waking up work, which is more inspecting this mind model, like just the core aspects of self and center and inside and outside and sense of control and those things. If, however, emotional content is like really showing yourself like, yo, it's screaming, this needs to be attended to, then we need to attend to it. I've come to think of beings as hive minds, where we have all these sub-minds that exist at different levels of development. Some are more awakened than others, and this whole sort of spectrum we inhabit. And the degree to which you can help yourself doing the cleaning up work is also dependent on how awakened some of your sub-minds are as well, because you can't like offer yourself that love if you don't have access to it, to these higher degrees. And so I say, like, get your best guys through. Get your best guys through so that they can, like, be a bodhisattva to yourself and come back and help save the subminds that are still in the hell realms and do the cleaning up like that. That's my general heuristic. There's complications with that as well, because sometimes if people just wake up too much and they still got a lot of shadow, psychological darkness, and there's massive polarity, and in some ways they appear like very awakened, but then they do pretty unhealthy things, and that can happen.
One very basic question. So I've been doing a number of different things, different practices. And I've probably been meditating about, if I had to add it all up, it's probably been like 4 hours or so of practice every day, if I'm honest.
Sitting.
I mean, yeah, it feels like the entire day is practice. But in terms of like dedicated sitting meditation, it's probably been 3 to 4 hours. If I were to ramp it up to 10, would you recommend choosing one thing for the entire 10 hours?
So I don't have bog standard answers for everyone.
Sure, yeah.
But for you, I know you could handle juggling more than one thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But still don't spread yourself too thin. Yeah. Do you want to share more, like, what you're thinking? We don't have to.
I don't think. Well, yeah, I guess. Well, the truth is, I have found that my mind has been going on a very deep journey on this retreat, I would say. And that journey has been like Alice in Wonderland-esque. And because of that, it's very hard for me to be like, okay, now I'm going to do this for 1 hour. Like, I notice that I will start doing something and then I'll be like, oh, but check out the berries in the tree, and then the berries have like amazing answers. That's the thing. So
I hope you're not eating the berries outside of meal times, but yeah.
Sometimes it feels like I am, but I'm not.
There is if we can try to take a big picture view of what's serving us, we might have a kind of faith in the chaos that, okay, I just let this thing rip and go wherever, and eventually it will organize and sort itself out. Depending on who we are, we may need more kind of external bumpers to keep us on track, and that can really help. I will say one thing, that to be very disciplined in a way requires a kind of compartmentalized mind that can override what other aspects of oneself want to do, and they're popping up. So I think you taste enough of the core elements of this, the insights of awakening, that I would think you're more one of the people that can go and already have the momentum of processing things, and insights will emerge, and naturally, quite organically, things will integrate and open up.
Wait, and therefore, I don't know. So I can trust it, you're saying?
I think you're on a good path, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
So I can sit for 10 hours in the Wonderland, so to speak.
there'll be no choice here. If you find yourself sitting and as the body mind comes together and is going to sit more, that's what will happen. And you will have considered reasons why too. Otherwise, you find that that's not what's happening with you. Yeah, so it makes sense.
Yeah. I have another totally unrelated question.
Yeah.
Do you believe in direct transmission? And what do you see as the mechanism of that? How do you explain that or understand it?
It's a great question.
Have you experienced it?
I do believe in it because I've experienced enough of it to know there's a thing. And yeah, so why do we believe things? Because we've had certain reference experiences that might speak to that happening, and people I trust, who I'm close to, people I trust their sense-making skills, report these experiences well, believe in them. Something that can happen, at least just on the subjective front, you're in the presence of someone, or not even, like this can happen online as well, and someone's speaking and it just drops you really quickly into a different state, the mind. And I think we are broadcasting beyond just the words we use, the kind of the tenor, the vocal, the vibrations of the words and how we present ourselves radiate and affect us and does something to us and can transform us. Yeah. The other mechanisms of action, I don't know, there are these theories like physically consciousness is related to the electromagnetic field, and it's like the perturbations and distortions and disturbances of that is what correlates with the changes in our states of mind. I don't know. Yeah. I definitely used to not believe in that kind of stuff. I thought, okay, spooky action at a distance, we don't have explanations for that. Like, we have to find a mechanism of action to explain this stuff. We don't have one yet. Therefore, I don't believe in it. But yeah, then you have these experiences, and just because we haven't found the mechanism to explain it, there's still something to investigate. Yes. Yeah.
Feel the same way.
Yeah.
And also just maybe, like this tracking the extremely subtle facial movements, or, how someone's sitting, or any, eye contact, like all of these are teaching something in every.
Yes. Yes. Cool. Thank you, President.
I think that there's sort of a standard view, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and this sort of gets to what you were saying about concentration earlier, is that it's like, do concentration practices for a while until you are able to concentrate well enough to do insight practices. Is that what you end up recommending for like most people, understanding that you can't give standard answers or whatever? Or are you more like, no, you can jump straight into insight practices if the conditions are right or something like that?
Yeah, if the conditions are right. Yeah, so looking for the right conditions. There's this whole, there's like swaths of people who want to do the direct path, like immediately have pointing out instructions, like who is looking, and just like, oh, bang, I just got it, like something happened. I think often that seems nice, seems convenient, seems like a shortcut, I think often what they're missing is they'll focus on the moment at which something clicked and shifted, but then not consider all the other moments that led up to make that moment happen. They're just like not factoring those in. And they might be like hitting these insights repeatedly and just hoping one day it works, and then maybe one day it does work, but for a lot of people it just never does. Not all states of mind are going to be equally equally as fruitful to do insight from. And so let's work on getting better foundations of mind, so when you go to do the insight, it's more likely to click. Yeah.
So you do tend to recommend starting with concentration stuff.
It's an aspect, yeah, not just concentration. Yeah, my general model here is, I think of with like four main cognitive faculties worth training that then makes as our tools to inspect the mind to do the insight work. Concentration being one of them, then metacognition, noticings per second, and sensory clarity. And so sometimes
Was it that one? I'm sure.
I'll just go through all of them again. Concentration, metacognition, noticings per second. It's like how quickly can you notice phenomena appear and disappear, and then sensory clarity. And concentration can be oversold a lot. So a lot of times people think, oh, I just need more concentration. I just need better concentration, I'm like, your concentration is probably hit the mark, is probably sufficient. Actually, you want to work on these other factors. Yeah. Metacognition. This is this kind of higher order awareness, or like some synonyms of it are lucidity, to know what is happening while it's happening. So I give this kind of trite example. When you're dreaming, often we don't know we're dreaming while we're dreaming, and we wake up, and then only after the dream ends do we reflect and go, oh yeah, that was a dream. That's to not have metacognition. But we can have lucid dreams where we're like, oh yeah, this is a dream. That's to have metacognition. So to have metacognition around when you're thinking, know that you're thinking. Don't just be totally lost in the thought. When there's a sight, know there's a sight. When there's a sound, know there's a sound. When there's a sensation, there's a sensation. When there's an emotion, know there's an emotion. Metacognition gives us that ability to not be fully identified and captured with whatever is presenting itself. So models of the self can arise of Roger with a first person perspective, and yet there's a metacognition that that's happening when it's happening. There's a metacognition of when that's not present, because that's not fundamental to experience, so it doesn't have to be there. And so with this understanding, it's not beholden to anything to those things that arise. Yeah.
You go over the other two.
Noticings per second. So yeah, how quickly can you notice phenomena appear and disappear? This is important because some features of experience create themselves very, very quickly in experience, and then they propagate. And if we are not conscious of mind moments before their creation, we can think that they are fundamental to being. So a lot of people, when they start out meditating, their noticings per second are very low, and they can't notice the gaps in between thoughts. Like thoughts just seem to be constant, and so they're quite welded to them. So like, yeah, that's just always on, and that is me. When we increase our noticings per second, then we start seeing these gaps in between phenomena, like, oh, okay, so it can't be essential to my being because there are these moments when it's not present. Yeah. And good baselines to get your noticings per second to is around like 5 to 10 noticings per second, which sounds really fast, but it's actually really doable. You got to, well, you surmise doing general counting, and you could familiarize yourself with Hertz rate frequency. So you can get an app. You can like haptic feedback suits in as well, vests, and become familiar with the different Hertz rate frequencies. That's a pretty nerdy phenomenological thing to do. You don't have to do that, but you can tell if you're like, 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, and if you're doing like see, hear, feel, see, hear, feel. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. You're at like 1 a second, a bit more than 1 a second. What I notice for myself, to notice that the center is not fundamental to experience. This is just my anecdote. I want more empirical data to hear from more people. So please, you guys tell me if it's different for you. But for me, when I had a center, it would appear and disappear at a rate of about, this is a rough number, 1.6 times per second. So if your noticings per second are even just 2 per second, and you know where to point it, that's fast enough to notice this thing appear and disappear. So it's not crazy, not doable. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I didn't do sensory clarity, but is that okay?
Can you explain how to train that sensory?
I think there might be a relationship between like the metacognition and the noticing per second, where like, especially if you want to increase the rate of noticing, you need to kind of remove the labels where like he's thinking about, putting names on what you're doing. You kind of remove that, or at least that's part of it. Where you just kind of remove the labels of what you're noticing and more focus on the sensory feeling of it rather than the name of this is anger, this is anxiety, this is that. That tends to increase.
Yeah.
Removing the labels.
Oh, yeah. Excellent point. So this is where I say there's this transition from noting, which is to add the mental label, which is just a tool to help us connect and make sure we're having these metacognitive moments. Without it, we can very easily kind of go on autopilot and sort of fake our think we're being mindful. But once we get fast enough, we don't have time to add the label, and it's a little it disconnects. So then we switch to noticing, where we're still metacognitively aware and we're on it and we're seeing things appear and disappear and they're clear what they are, but without the label. So from noting to noticing. So maybe that's kind of what your question was.
Oh no, my question was about sensory clarity as its own category. How do you train that? Oh, what I mean by that as distinct from the other.
So I will caveat all of this. If you try to pick apart any of these, they fall apart. Like they're not really separate things, but these are just kind of useful distinctions I'm making. But they won't hold up. No distinctions hold up. Like as soon as we investigate it, like all the dualities dissolve. But roughly from a certain level of abstraction, sensory clarity is seeing clearly definitions, outlines, edges, relations of things. So to see clearly, you have an emotion, and what is the flavor of that emotion, and how it triggers a mental image and a narrative, and where exactly does it correspond in the body, and how there's a reaction to the emotion, and maybe a reaction to that reaction. And so this training we can do much slower, and in fact deliberately, if you're body scanning, go slow. So it's not the speedy of the noticing per second.
Like noticing per second is like quantity, and sensory clarity is like quality.
Yeah. So often there's a trade-off with quantity and quality. The faster we go, we lose like specificity, but eventually we want to bring them together. And I'd say prioritize quality over quantity, and then once you've got a good level of quality of clearly seeing phenomena, try to see them faster.
So for noting, you have a very specific practice. Do you have a specific practice for sensory clarity? Or noticing,
Body scanning, obviously, and going slow. You could do noting, but go slow. Yeah, really go.
Body scanning and noting.
The difference?
Yeah.
So body scanning is just to trace and be aware of every part of your body. Noting, you're not trying to control your attention. You're open to whatever arises, whatever flavor of phenomenon in whatever sense channel. And when it does, you tag it. You give it a mental label, like you think in your head, see if it's a visual stimuli, hear if it's a sound. You're adding. So you're noticing and then adding a label, which with body scanning, you don't add this label. Yeah.
Different topic. I don't know if everyone wants to continue this. Go. 4 or 5 months ago, I did have an experience with direct pointing where I think I mentioned this to you, for about 3 days, it didn't really make sense for me to say hi. Like that went away. I don't know where I was as far as, but I'd kind of ignored that. I've kind of just gone back to concentration, playing around with jhana, and then the purification stuff I talked to you about. Because I'm sure exactly no, but what is your suggestion from the conversations we've had? Should I try to go back and doing some direct pointing? I guess I've not been doing any insight, and that would be considered insight. Was noticing that I don't exist, or that I doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that languaging. I doesn't make sense and stuff like this.
The best way to describe it was just like everything was arising. It didn't make sense for me to say I was doing this. It was this is arising.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of what I was saying earlier with cleaning up and waking up. The thing is with the cleaning up is that seems pretty endless. There's just like endless content to process because, depending on your beliefs, it's like not only do we have to heal the trauma we've endured in this lifetime, but there's like past, like ancestral trauma, but then there's also like cultural trauma, and like it's endless. So with that in mind, yeah, when you have these windows of opportunity where things are pretty calm, stable seas, to then, do that insight work, and it is really worthwhile. I'd like to say gaining greater metacognition, gaining greater context of mind. There are periods where a sense of, I may not arise. It's not functionable to never refer to that word or try to always be dodging it or something like that.
I could have said it. It didn't feel like I needed this. Like it just felt like things were arising versus
Yeah. I think of reality as sort of strata of abstractions from zero to more complex. And what we consider true or base reality depends on how deep an insight into emptiness we have descending through these layers of abstraction. And it could be, you glimpsed, more fundamental content where the I is emergent and exists at a higher level of abstraction, and therefore, that's not really how reality is shaped or how things are. There's a funny thing that happens though when we complete the emptiness process and it's all abstraction all the way down, then we're more free to exist at these different levels of abstraction, and there's an equalizing, an ontological equalizing of what is more real or less real. And so, for practical reasons here, we all know what we mean of different people and me and you, and yet we can work with that and harbor those models within a maintained greater context of mind such that they never fully capture the mind. And this doesn't seem to affect our suffering levels.
So I guess the main question I have is, I just did off the assumption that was insightful, because that experience allowed me to see that I'm always going to have a discernment. I'm always going to have my love, even if I don't. A lot of stuff was gone. So it's super helpful. Then I just went back to like breath concentration and other stuff.
Yeah.
Going back to trying to do direct client insight.
It's so interesting. It's almost like you can see the evidence of, what you were pulled for. I mean, sometimes people kind of open a door, look in and be like, okay, and then lose interest and go do other things with their lives, But maybe you've got this kind of niggling feeling like, oh, okay, maybe there's something more to explore then. So part of you...
I would love to go back to that place. It was
great.
Yeah.
If there's, fuel and interest and curiosity, go back. Yeah, you definitely go back. Don't spend the rest of this lifetime not investigating that more. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
So with noting, I usually start with see, hear, feel, and that'd be like, 1 or 2 per second. And then for me, fast noting meant zoom in to a object and then see the arising and passing, just types of contraction, do that much faster. But it seems like you're actually suggesting see, hear, feel, see, hear, feel, see, hear, feel. Like, let that continue to bounce around to a bunch of different things at a very high pace.
Sorry, as opposed to
See, hear, feel one at a time, and then like I'll zoom into the piano and I can see it's like visual pulsing, or I can zoom into somatic sensation and see or feel up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, like really fast. So I'm sort of zooming in and then seeing fast arisings and passings rather than fast, like different objects.
you want to do all of it. All of it, yeah. So notice how the mind shifts from, different objects, but also to be able to, you got the noticings per second and stay on something to see that how impermanent phenomena are, even, when you're looking and say, all of it. Yeah.
I guess I need to build this skill because I find when I start doing different objects really fast, I tend to circle. Like,
Predictably.
Yeah. Maybe you need to build up. Like when I'm doing it slowly, it's like that thing. It's all unpredictable. It just happens. And then when I speed it up, I'm scanning. So
yeah. How long, when you're doing it really fast, do you scan and circulate in this predictable manner for?
That varies, but maybe like that, like circle per second, and then like picking up few objects. But it's feeling forced rather than when it's slow. It's like I'm just reacting.
I think that's not such a problem. The brain likes to look for novelty, so it will break that pattern up. So I was like, wondering how long do you stay on it? It'll break itself. It'll break that cycle spontaneously at some point. The feeling forced. Okay, I'm going to introduce another concept here. There's something I like to call amodal perception. Have we spoken about this? But for the sake of the group, okay, a lot of you have been hearing me talk about part of this in interviews. You got your focused attention, you got your peripheral awareness. People know that. And then I add on 2 more categories. But just one of them is amodal perception. So you've got what you're looking at is most highlighted in experience. Then past that, away from that, there's more content, but at less phenomenological richness, in less detail. The colors are less saturated, sounds are less clear, definitions are less sharp, right, in your peripheral awareness. We can even go out even more to a point of something called amodal perception. And this is the kind of content that's just seems like just information, where its phenomenological richness is so low, you can't even say that it has any color or shape or definition, but it's still informing your immediate experience. I give an example. What's a good example here? Okay, let's just do this. You guys can see the front face of this folded blanket. You cannot see the back of it, but you can amodally perceive the back of this, which means you can't see it. It's not forming like an object in experience, but there's still information there that is informing your experience. Like you're not thinking there's nothing there, that the world ends there. So when I show you, you're not surprised. It kind of met some prediction. We can start becoming metacognizant of the amodal content as well. Okay. I'm linking this in because you were talking about doing a circling thing like this. The amodal stuff really, that information really exists on the border between conscious and unconscious. If you're noting really, really, really quickly, amodal stuff isn't really presented in space. Like, where are you seeing the back of the blanket? Where are you perceiving the back of the blanket? Not really being rendered spatially, but there's still something that's informing you there. When we start noting really, really quickly, we're not noticing phenomena appear and disappear in extended space. So if you're really, really quick, there wouldn't be this room to kind of do that. It's all just happening, and it can still be changing content like that. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is go even faster.
Wasn't there another category?
Yeah, then there's something I call the axial aspect. Yeah, which okay, I've mentioned it now, so I got to go into it. I can't leave you guys hanging. And I call it the axial aspect because I kind of wanted a fourth A because it's attention, awareness, amodal, and I was like, okay, I need a fourth A. This is the axial aspect, and that is something that is basically our perceived ground of being that is seemingly always being rendered and experienced, and it's so salient and yet undefinable, and it's kind of the thing you're identifying with that seems as a constant, where the amodal stuff is lots of changing content. The axial aspect is this constant. So for many people it's just this raw sense of self, or it could be a sense of I am, or it could be a sense of just consciousness or nothingness. So the axial aspect does change, but it's the thing when you ask people like, what's always there? And they're referencing something. They're like, oh, I can't, it's always there, but I can't really describe it, but I'm tuning into it. I feel it right now. I'm noticing it. And it's kind of, no matter how my states change, like that is always there. That's always present. Yeah. So when you listen to different spiritual teachers and they come up with different descriptions for what they're calling your identity or the big self or the ground of being, and like, how do we make sense? Like, why are they coming to different things? Okay, different levels of awakening or something like this. I'm saying, yeah, their axial aspect has changed. They're falling on different parts of these layers of abstraction. Yeah. And so there's kind of a process, I dare say, awakening is actually about not having an axial aspect. Recognize there's no core, no ground, no center to this thing. Not full, not constant like that. This is just my jargon. You don't have to pick up or use.
I have a question about the amoral one. Like, I feel like there could be like infinity of those. Like because like if I look at you, I like have the amoral thought that you have like a stomach and lungs and all this, even though I've never seen any of that stuff in real life, really.
Yeah. I think we have limited conscious capacity. We cannot be aware of everything at once. The amodal stuff is in consciousness, but just on the periphery. But it's so fleeting and so changing. So there won't be quantifying things doesn't really make sense ultimately, right? So we can't count how many things are in consciousness. But in another sense, yeah, we have limited capacity there, and there'll be an interplay, there'll be an exchange. So you're not always amodally perceiving, considering I have lungs, right? That might pop in and out, thing like this. Does that make sense?
It's just kind of like the map of like your head is more in my consciousness than like your lung would be.
So yeah, thinking of different time horizons here, how that's always switching second to second. Yeah, that'd be a good example. Yeah, you're more likely to think, yeah, there's a back of the head here, rather than it's more easy to forget. Oh yeah, here's lungs. Makes sense. Yeah, cool. Great. So a final question before we go into the group sit.
Don't forget everything you said and just
Yes, please, if anything, yes.
I don't think it's a question. I want to confirm that so this axial aspect, wouldn't synonym for that be what you haven't yet seen as empty?
Yes, you got it. Yes, exactly. Oh, I love that. So this is very nerdy and phenomenological. But okay, I don't want to confuse you guys. Don't worry about it. Yeah, break for 5 minutes, and then we come do a group sit. Thank you.